He saw a cross in the sky before battle, and everything changed. Constantine, son of a pagan emperor, rose through blood and war to seize the throne of a fractured empire. But it wasn't just power he claimed, it was a new faith. He legalized Christianity, ended centuries of persecution, and called a council to define a god. Temples gave way to churches. Bishops gained influence once held by senators. Rome didn't fall that day, but it shifted. This is the story of Constantine the Great, warrior, politician, and the man who dragged an ancient empire into a Christian future. What began with swords and omens would end with crosses carved in stone, and a world changed forever. Step with me into a world where the flickering shadows of ancient Rome paint a dramatic canvas of power grabs and intrigue. Here, survival was a relentless dance of who to trust and who to conquer. Born into this tumultuous world was Constantine, whose life was marked by a potent blend of humble origins and imperial ties. His mother, Helena, came from modest beginnings, while Constantius Chlorus, his father, carved a path from these origins to the heights of Roman general and Caesar. Constantine's young life teetered between these contrasting worlds, a duality that presaged the epical shifts in his future. From the start, Constantine straddled two realms, one rooted in the earthy streets of Rome, and the other in the lofty corridors of power. His upbringing was not the typical journey of a patrician child. Instead, it was immersed in the rawness of ordinary life alongside the grandeur of imperial ambition. These early years were spent navigating a fractured empire, where alliances shifted with the winds. Constantine's sharp observations taught him invaluable political acumen and a deep understanding of human nature. From these early lessons, vital survival skills emerged, necessary in an empire held together by strained treaties and capricious rulers. Constantine's education was a rich mosaic of history, philosophy, and martial arts. Guided by scholars versed in the wisdom of Athens and Alexandria, he embraced a world of ideas and possibilities. His teachers imparted far more than knowledge. They gave him tools of thought, debate, and command. In parallel, Constantine's education transcended the classroom, extending into the crucible of battles and disciplined formations, impressing upon him the raw experiences of life and death, thereby honing his strategic skills and adaptability, key to his eventual leadership. The death of Constantius was a seismic moment. For Constantine, it was both a personal blow and a political awakening, thrusting him into the treacherous vortex of imperial machinations. No longer merely a Caesar's son, he was cast into the swirling currents of power struggles. The death illuminated a stark reality for Constantine. He was alone in a political landscape more inclined to power games than collaboration. His resolve hardened. The ambition to fulfill his father's legacy became entwined with ensuring his own survival in a world where alliances were fickle and loyalty scarce. The Roman Empire of Constantine's time was fragmented, its vast territories divided under the Tetrarchy, an attempt at shared rule that bred discord instead of stability. Constantine saw in this chaos not a challenge but an opportunity. Where others perceived disorder, he discerned the openings necessary to stake his claim. His journey through Rome's political landscape was both perilous and strategic, for Constantine needed to solidify his position amidst volatile rivalries, a task requiring not just military prowess, but deft statesmanship. Constantine's early military campaigns were proving grounds where he displayed tactical acumen. Detached from conventional methods, he employed strategies and innovations that confounded seasoned veterans. These campaigns served as transactional fields. Victories secured allegiances, while defeats bore heavy costs. Command was cemented through daring maneuvers, earning him respect that transcended the battlefield and translated into political capital. Each encounter was more than just martial, it was a stage for the broader game of empire. Trust was a currency in Constantine's world, where alliances were tenuous and betrayal rife. Navigating this web required pragmatism and constant diplomatic negotiations. Constantine forged alliances not from sentiment but necessity, turning adversaries into allies when it suited, and allies into pawns when it benefited his broader strategy. His mastery lay in recognizing when to strike, withdraw, or recalibrate alliances, marking his prowess as both a military leader and a political tactician. Amidst the sieges and political battles, Constantine harboured a vision beyond personal ambition, a transformative dream for a unified and renewed Rome. His conversion to Christianity was neither caprice nor expedience, but a profound evolution, proposing that empires are sustained not by borders alone, but by a shared identity. This vision underpinned each manoeuvre, intertwining military and political actions with a deeper, enduring purpose: to transform Rome not just into a lasting empire, but into a beacon of strength and spiritual unity. In the bloodlines that coursed through his veins, Constantine carried echoes of an ancestry defined by power and aspiration. His legacy was not a burden, but a testimony to what was possible. Embracing his history, he wove a narrative that honoured both his father's military might and his mother's resilience. With each decision, he knit together a new era, standing at the intersection of tradition and transformation, poised to rewrite the empire's destiny. Constantine's emergence was more than an ascent. It was a synthesis of ambition, legacy, and astute strategy. The path ahead of him was fraught with challenges, yet through resilience and vision, he ventured into the annals of history, casting Rome not merely as a realm, but as an eternal idea. As we trace his journey from these origins, we witness an unfolding drama where ancient legacies met new destinies, and a child of two worlds rose to unite them into a singular, empire-shaping force. The rise of Constantine is a tale deeply enmeshed with Rome's ambitious yet fractured political experiment known as the Tetrarchy, a system intended to quell chaos by distributing power among four rulers. Born out of necessity, it sought to govern the vast empire spanning 3 continents by assigning emperors, or Augusti, and their juniors, the Caesars, to rule distinct regions. While the plan aimed for stability and clear succession, underlying tensions simmered. Each ruler, driven by ambition and underpinned by vast armies, found collaboration elusive. The distances and communication barriers compounded the disunity, turning a united empire into a fragile mosaic, each piece governed by leaders with diverging goals and ambitions. This tetrarchy, though conceptually ingenious, proved volatile, where fleeting alliances and political manoeuvring were the currency of power. The rulers, ostensibly working for a collective Roman glory, were often caught in personal agendas. The disparities in regional resources and prestige, coupled with insidious pride, laid the groundwork for inevitable clashes. In this divided backdrop, Constantine emerged, a product of these chasms, schooled in the ways of vigilance and strategic acumen necessary for survival. It was an environment where dreams of unity broke, yet he uniquely positioned himself to mend what others shattered. Constantine's ascendancy was nurtured by the towering presence of his father, Constantius Chlorus, one of the original Tetrarchs overseeing the western regions. Under Constantius's tutelage, Constantine gained intimate insights into the machinery of Roman governance and the brutal realities of warfare. Witnessing his father's adeptness and missteps alike, Constantine absorbed lessons in leadership, understanding the potent combination of forming solid alliances and wielding decisive action. Privilege intertwined with peril. Every courtly intrigue and the battlefield maneuver became a classroom. Constantine, poised between nobility's grandeur and the stark realities beyond the palatial walls, learned to hold restraint and ambition in a delicate balance. The sudden death of Constantius in 306 CEE was the catalyst that thrust him into the crucible of imperial ambitions, where the only way forward lay through asserting his destiny amid a crumbling tetrarchy. The northern frontier, a fearsome boundary of the Roman Empire, was Constantine's proving ground. This rugged landscape was a formidable line of defence against barbarian incursions. The chill winds and biting frost sculpted the resilience and loyalty of those stationed there. Constantine, at home in these harsh lands, honed his leadership and strategic skills, commanding a fierce loyalty from his troops who found inspiration in his steadfast vision and hands-on approach. The frontier's physical and mental challenges reinforced his prowess, shaping him into a commander whose strategic foresight outpaced others. Constantine's troops, who had followed him through these arduous campaigns, rewarded his leadership with their utmost loyalty, proclaiming him emperor upon his father's demise. This was no mere gesture. It was a testament to the bonds born from shared battlefields and trials. The army's unwavering support underlined a merit-based ascension, distinct from the customary Roman power dynamics, sending ripples of change throughout the empire. Constantine was embraced not as a usurper, but a rightful leader, whose authority was authenticated through the allegiance and respect of those who had marched alongside him, a force that carried weight in the volatile hierarchy of that era. His journey was soon entwined with Maxentius, another figure of the time who sought power through shrewd political maneuvers. Maxentius ruled from the heart of Rome, his claim fortified by his familial lineage. Yet despite his strategic hold on Rome, Maxentius's coalition was fragile, tugged apart by the undercurrents of distrust and ambition. Unlike Constantine's loyal legions, Maxentius's rule was mired in fragile politics. This nascent rivalry reflected the broader structural anarchy threatening Rome. Whereas Constantine thrived on merit and military strength, Maxentius clung to tradition and political gambits, setting the stage for a critical confrontation. Constantine, ever the tactician, engaged in a chess match of strategy and alliances, fortifying his position through diplomatic marriages and forging crucial alliances within the Eastern realms. He navigated the turbulent waters of Roman politics with a deft hand, undermining Maxentius by framing himself as Rome's rightful protector and subtly championing burgeoning Christian support. As the civil war brewed, the empire teetered on the edge of chaos, with each skirmish marking a step towards the impending showdown. His march southward toward Milvian Bridge was marked by strategic brilliance and symbolic vigour. Constantine's forces, powered by discipline and motivated by the promise of restoring Rome's glory, approached this fateful juncture. Propaganda and tales of divine favour swirled around his campaign, energising his troops and striking fear into rivals. The anticipation was palpable as the march reached an apex at Milvian Bridge, a decisive battleground where more than territory was at stake. As battle lines drew near and the empire's future hung in the balance, Constantine confronted not just external foes, but internal conflicts and the sacrifices of sovereignty. His leadership deftly reconciled these tensions, balancing political pragmatism with personal drive. Constantine was acutely aware of the costs of power and the empire's need for unity beyond conquest. The fate of an empire teetered in the balance, its future woven with the decisions looming at Milvian Bridge, where Constantine stood ready not only to claim victory, but to sculpt the legacy of Rome anew. In the shadow of an empire rife with turmoil, Rome stood silent, bracing itself for another upheaval as dark clouds loomed over its ancient structures. Citizens whispered in marketplaces and taverns, their fears echoing the fragile allegiances that defined their city. Maxentius fortified his stronghold, preparing for the inevitable clash, while the city's myriad voices buzzed with anticipation. Amidst this gathering storm, Constantine advanced, his presence destined to reshape the fate of Rome under a banner unknown to the pagan world, a banner of Christian faith. Constantine found himself at a crossroads, a leader whose ambition wrestled with the divine mysteries he contemplated. Years of military campaigns had sharpened his strategic mind, yet something greater tugged at his spirit. The divine, he realized, might offer him not just victory, but an eternal legacy. His advisors debated fiercely, invoking the favor of Rome's traditional gods, while augurs examined omens in the entrails of sacrificed animals. But Constantine's gaze reached beyond the familiar pieties. Christianity's monotheistic allure began to speak a language of unity and certainty amid chaos, a faith transcending mere tactical acumen. The turning point came on the eve of battle, in which legend tells us Constantine experienced a vision that altered history's course. As darkness settled over the camp, he retreated into his tent, a general both weary and expectant. In the sky appeared a luminous cross, inscribed with the words, "In hoc signo vinces." In this sign, conquer. Skeptics might dismiss this as a cosmological quirk, yet for Constantine, it was a revelation, as tangible as any strategic asset. The vision carved itself into his psyche, threading between myth, faith, and raw human emotion. A divine encounter that promised more than earthly conquest. It offered the dream of eternal empire. With newfound conviction, Constantine embraced the cross, departing from Rome's pantheon of multiple gods. He ordered the Christian symbols to be painted on the shields of his soldiers, a bold move that fused military might with spiritual mandate. Historians debate the exact form of these symbols, whether as the Chi Rho or another, but their impact was indelible. The Christian emblem, traditionally a mark of persecution, now became a standard for warriors, kindling zeal with its promise of divine backing. It was a strategic move that transmuted doubt into determinism, challenging an empire steeped in polytheism to consider a monotheistic future. Constantine's audacity at this moment signalled his transformation from a mere contender to a revolutionary leader. His mother Helena had already sown the seeds of Christianity's rituals and beliefs in his consciousness. Now, his celestial vision catalysed his role as an architect of a faith-infused rule, challenging the status quo with the power of divine sanction. This change was not immediate, but a gradual testament to his strategic mind, a bridge between centuries-old Roman traditions and emerging Christian imperatives. The integration of faith into his military strategy endowed his soldiers with a sense of mission beyond imperial conquest. Each warrior took to the field, not just as a soldier, but as a representative of a celestial cause. The emblem on their shields elevated the conflict from a political skirmish to a righteous crusade, infusing them with a unity of purpose that transcended the typical discipline of Roman legions. They fought not merely for territory or glory, but under the belief that they wielded divine favour against Maxentius. The battlefield, once a realm of Mars and Jupiter, now resonated with the echoes of a singular divine entity. Turning the tides of warfare, this transformation also reflected the complicated tapestry of superstition and belief that defined ancient life. In a world unversed in modern logic, where omens were catalysts for kings, the weight of Constantine's vision stretched beyond mere religious experience. It heralded a seismic shift in the empire's spiritual landscape. It intertwined prophecies with strategic foresight, anchoring a populace desperate for divine assurance amidst persistent strife. Yet conversion to Christianity was no simple matter. Deeply ingrained in Rome's cultural fabric, polytheism dominated. Constantine's shift was a masterstroke of political navigation, wielding new religious fervour as a means of cohesion within a fragmented empire. His move treaded a delicate line, balancing the construction of churches with the preservation of pagan temples, a diplomatic dance of unification under a singular divine peace. Constantine's vision and the decisions it inspired extended far beyond his reign, laying groundwork for a Christianized Roman state and redefining governance in Europe for years to come. His commitment marked a pivotal exchange of a pantheistic realm for one dominated by monotheistic majesty. It forged an imperial ideology intertwined with faith, heralding a legacy of enduring import, a new order united under divine mandate, far more enduring than any military conquest. The story of Constantine's vision at Milvian Bridge remains, even now, as a lesson in the transformative power of belief. The cross in the sky serves as an eternal symbol of how faith can articulate and galvanise a leader's path, reshaping empires and igniting revolutions. It demonstrates the profound connection between leadership and larger metaphysical ideals. Constantine's legacy stands as a testament to the convergence of ambition, spirituality, and power, reaffirming that the strongest fortresses are built upon convictions born on the wings of visionary revelations painted in the night sky. In the year 312 CE, the city of Rome stood on the precipice of war. Tensions simmered under the rule of Maxentius, a leader grasping at control amidst a populace filled with dread and suspicion. The Roman Empire, once an unbreakable titan, now lay fractured, its glory fading into uncertainty. The Tiber River flowed darkly through a city marked by opulence and squalor alike, whispering the stories of its turbulent past. Within this volatile crucible, Maxentius fortified his position, erecting barriers that spoke less of assured dominance and more of a desperate leader bracing for a looming clash against the ambitious Constantine. Constantine's forces marched with purpose, driven not merely by ambition, but by a divine vision, a cross blazing against the heavens, a promise of victory under the Christian banner. The journey to Rome was both a declaration and a pilgrimage, as his soldiers, their shields bearing the Christian labarum, moved like an unstoppable tide across the Italian landscape. Constantine, a man of destiny, steered his army not simply with strategy but with the fervour of faith, gathering support from the countryside, where belief in his cause spread like wildfire. The armies approached the Milvian Bridge, a strategic fulcrum where military brilliance and raw determination coalesced. Constantine's forces, astute and resolute, position themselves with calculated precision, understanding the terrain's nuances. They moved like a complex organism, guided by Constantine's keen mind, their spirits reinforced by a vision that blurred the lines between divine mandate and earthly conquest. In stark contrast, Maxentius's forces, though formidable in number, remained complacently ensconced in defensive postures, perhaps overconfident in their fortifications and underestimating the spirit imbued in Constantine's ranks. The battle commenced as dawn broke on October 28th, the mist cloaking the land as if nature itself anticipated the unfolding drama. The clang of metal rang through the air, and Constantine's legions, inspired by their leader's divine vision, advanced with relentless zeal. Each soldier bore the emblem of faith on their shield, transforming the battlefield into a canvas of spiritual warfare. Maxentius's troops, initially steadfast, soon found themselves confronting not just their adversaries' tactical acumen, but the intangible force of belief that drove them. As the struggle wore on, the balance began to tilt. Constantine's perceptive adaptations and strategic insights allowed his forces to exploit weaknesses in Maxentius's formations. A feint evolved into a determined charge, breaching defences with the precision and inevitability of a tidal surge. Fractures appeared in Maxentius's lines, and the emperor, faced with inevitable collapse, ordered a retreat across the Tiber. Yet in doing so, chaos unfurled. The structural limitations of the Milvian Bridge buckled under the weight of retreating forces. In the panic and confusion, Maxentius himself was swept into the river's depths, a ruler undone by the very element he had counted on as an ally. Constantine's entry into Rome post-victory was not just a military triumph, it was a moment of transformation. The people, weary of Maxentius's oppressive hold, welcomed Constantine with open arms. The city, once mired in its own trepidations, now seemed to pulse with renewed hope. Streets echoed with cries of acclamation as Constantine, not just a conqueror, but a saviour, rode through them. Here was an emperor baptised in the fires of battle, carrying with him the promise of a new dawn, a synthesis of imperial strength and Christian faith. This significant victory at the Milvian Bridge signalled a pivotal shift in the empire's religious and cultural landscape. Constantine, by marking his army's shields with the sign of the cross, entwined his military success with the rise of Christianity. No longer was the faith a fringe belief. It occupied the very heart of Rome's military might, signalling a profound alignment of the temporal with the spiritual. Pagan practices began their retreat, making room for a new order rooted in what many saw as divine purpose. In the aftermath, Constantine set about shaping a redefined Rome, one where imperial authority and burgeoning Christian ideology coexisted within a delicate balance. He addressed the complex structures of power with a mix of tradition and radical reform, setting precedents for a new era. Chronicles would remember this transformation, weaving tales of an empire reborn under the confluence of faith, power, and vision. The Milvian Bridge became more than a site of conflict. It was the junction at which two worlds collided and then merged, the ancient and the nascent, the imperial Roman and the emerging Christian, leading to a legacy that would echo through history's corridors. Before the Edict of Milan, Christianity lived precariously in the shadows of the Roman Empire, an often whispered secret among its followers. The Christians, a community yet unbroken, faced relentless persecution, a darkness punctuated by events like the Great Persecution under Diocletian. Here, amid threats and dangers, believers gathered in catacombs, their faith glowing like embers in a world that sought to extinguish them. Ostracism and torture were constants, and martyrdom became the ultimate testament of faith over fear, a poignant symbol of enduring hope amidst the empire's wrath. In a sprawling empire with gods aplenty, Christianity's singular focus stood sharply against the traditional tapestry of Roman religion. The Christian denial of Rome's deities and the divinity of the emperor was perceived as rebellion, stirring fears of societal breakdown. This defiance was often blamed for calamities like floods and plagues, and correction came through unrelenting spectacles in the Colosseum and fiery executions. Yet, this suppressed faith blossomed into bravery, finding strength in the promise of an eternal kingdom. In this charged climate entered Constantine, not immediately a champion of this beleaguered faith, but one whose journey to endorsement was as strategic as it was spiritual. His path was marked by pivotal moments, including a vision of the cross before the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, a moment that intertwined destiny with divine favour. This vision fueled his belief in a divinely sanctioned victory, merging political calculation with spiritual awakening. As a ruler navigating the aftermath of the Tetrarchy's collapse, Constantine recognised Christianity as a unifying force amid the chaos, a religion that could ally disparate Roman citizens under a common belief system. The embrace of Christianity offered Constantine a new socio-political advantage, allowing him to distinguish himself from rivals through a moral authority framed as divinely bestowed. Here was a burgeoning faith, scattered yet connected across the empire, providing both stability and support for his reign. Through the Edict of Milan, Constantine enacted a transformative policy, not only ending a cycle of persecution, but rejuvenating a faith poised on the brink. In 313 CE, in the city of Mediolanum, now Milan, Constantine, alongside Licinius, crafted the revolutionary Edict of Milan. This decree decriminalised Christianity and heralded an era of religious freedom throughout the empire. Christians stepping into the light discovered newfound legitimacy to worship openly, signifying Rome's shift from relentless intolerance to a landscape embracing spiritual diversity. The edict dictated the restoration of confiscated properties to Christians, reparations echoing acknowledgement of past sufferings, symbolising a government's realignment towards its formerly marginalised constituency. With the legitimacy granted by the edict, Christians emerged boldly from the underground, manifesting their presence in new basilicas across Roman cities. These structures were more than mere places of worship. They stood as testimonials to a faith that had once been silenced, now resonating in the open air. This structural transformation not only altered the architectural skyline, but reshaped the cultural landscape, where Christian liturgies and iconography began to fill spaces that once trembled in silence. The edict also elevated bishops from clandestine leaders to civic luminaries, their roles now pivotal in the societal and political games of the empire. This newfound influence allowed them to champion morality and justice, shifting balance from oppression to a more equitable milieu, solidifying the Christian Church's place within the empire, while reaching out to guide the secular realm. Yet the promise of pluralism did not come without tension. Pagan traditions, long interwoven with Roman identity, now faced the rising tide of Christian influence. Rituals and temples dedicated to Rome's ancient deities gradually transformed, the rhythms of society shifting under the new watch of Christian holy days. Pagan customs and philosophies encountered an existential crossroad, challenging the citizens' grasp of their cultural roots. In response, ancient rituals found reinvention within Christian practices, while some pagans expressed philosophical unrest, fearing the erosion of their time-honoured ways. Despite these tensions, an incremental acceptance emerged, blending traditions over time, illustrating an empire's evolving identity under Constantine's nuanced leadership. Constantine's duality as both protector of Christians and Pontifex Maximus highlighted his profound political acumen. Ensuring the favour of pagans, he carefully navigated a delicate tapestry of loyalty, ensuring stability by bridging old and new religious spheres. His reign thus becomes a study in balance, a prudent display of power, managed through symbolism and pragmatism, aiming to steer Rome towards a harmonious fusion of beliefs. The edict marked a transformative shift, laying the groundwork for a social and moral evolution within the empire. Almsgiving, hospitals and charitable acts proliferated, reshaping Roman social contract through a compassionate lens. Legal reforms began imagining a justice system underpinned by new Christian ethics, framing a society striving for fairness beyond brutality and dominance. Despite initial resistance, pragmatic advantages compelled many pagans to accept the religious pivot. Over time, faiths intertwined, driven by spiritual awakenings and socio-economic motivations, crafting a united society ripened by Constantine's ambition. Diverse in its constituents, yet converging towards a shared imperial vision. The edict's legacy transcends its era, emphasizing tolerance as key in bridging divides, with Constantine's bold choices continuing to echo in modern reflections of faith and governance, ultimately shaping the tapestry of human dignity and unity across ages. In the early 4th century, two emperors stood as cautious allies, Constantine in the west, Licinius in the east. Bound by marriage and mutual interest, their partnership masked a simmering tension. With one eye on each other, they knew alliances in Rome were fickle. Constantine, wary of sharing power, eyed Licinius's territories with ambition, while Licinius watched with suspicion as Constantine embraced Christianity. Their rivalry was a shadow looming over a fractured empire. Minor skirmishes along their borders foretold a larger conflict, and as the provinces braced for war, diplomacy faltered. Licinius clung to traditional Roman beliefs, seeing in Constantine's Christian sympathies not just a threat but a departure from Rome's ancient spirit. The edicts of peace crumbled as cracks widened, fed by personal grievances and political strife. Licinius, feeling the squeeze of Constantine's influence, responded by rolling back the freedoms granted to Christians, stirring anger in the east. For Constantine, this was a call to arms, framing Licinius as an oppressor who had to be ousted for religious freedom's sake. This narrative fueled his ambition as he sought a singular rule over the empire. Their clash erupted in October 316 CE on the rolling plains of Kybali, a decisive battlefield. Constantine commanded a seasoned army from his western campaigns, each soldier hardened by Europe's fierce battles. Licinius, matching that might, gathered an army rich with eastern resources and skilled in Roman warfare. The fields where they met soon ran thick with the cries of the dying and the clash of steel. Constantine's forces, driven by faith as much as strength, pushed back Licinius's men, who struggled beneath the burden of Constantine's relentless advance. By nightfall, the dust settled on Constantine's victory, his strategic brilliance shining through the turmoil. Though defeated, Licinius retreated with careful calculation. His withdrawal, while orderly, hinted at desperation, He sought time to regroup, to rally those still loyal, and to invoke the ancient gods. Desperation spurred him to rely on the old deities, promising renewed rights in exchange for divine favour. But as Constantine pursued with relentless momentum, the psychological impact on Licinius's forces deepened. Constantine's strategy was swift and overwhelming, a masterclass in rapid warfare designed to break Licinius's spirit. As Constantine pressed on, city by city fell, each victory expanding his grasp over the ancient world. His approach was not just military, but psychological, a campaign to unravel Licinius's support. Constantine combined force with diplomacy, offering a vision of unity under his rule. The roads of Rome carried not just armies, but the promise of peace under Constantine's steady hand. The decisive battle awaited at Chrysopolis in 324 CE. Here, along the Bosporus's banks, their armies faced off in the ultimate trial. Constantine, strategic and fearless, sought total supremacy. Both leaders invoked divine aid, their gods witnessing a struggle that would decide an empire's fate. As day turned to night, Constantine's forces dominated, his leadership unbreakable. Licinius, his dreams shattered, recognized the inevitable defeat. Facing surrender, Licinius confronted the victor. Constantine, known for both clemency and control, offered terms. Licinius, once emperor, now lived as a captive, a poignant symbol of Rome's treacherous politics. His execution in 325 marked the empire's reunification under Constantine's wide-reaching vision. With Licinius's fall, Constantine stood as sole ruler of Rome, an achievement unseen for decades. His unification was both practical and symbolic. An empire once splintered, now forged as a singular power. Constantine's reach stretched from the Atlantic's edge to the Nile's depths, binding diverse peoples under one rule. Constantine sought more than dominion. His reforms promised economic stability and administrative efficiency, targeting a cohesive, prosperous future. His vision transformed both West and East, uniting the empire alongside faith's guiding star. Constantine's establishment of Constantinople as the New Rome reflected his ambition. This city symbolized the empire's newfound unity, a bridge between classical traditions and progressive innovation. Throughout his reign, Constantine's relationship with Christianity reshaped Rome. He became the faith's patron, aligning the empire's moral compass toward the promise of salvation. His conversion was both spiritual and political, crafting an empire unified in belief. The once persecuted faith now flourished, framed by councils and creeds under Constantine's vigilant gaze. In the architectural splendour of basilicas and the doctrinal authority of the Nicene Creed, Constantine left an indelible mark. His leadership carved a legacy where church and state became intertwined, laying the foundation for Western Christendom. Constantine's Rome emerged reborn under the Christian cross, his reign a testament to the transformative power of faith, guiding an empire toward a future that echoed beyond the ages. In the simmering summer of 325 CE, under the vast expanse of the Roman sky, Constantine perched as the unparalleled ruler of an empire, teetering on the edge of a spiritual schism. The unity of the realm was at stake, not through swords or borders, but through the seething theological rifts within Christianity. As the threads of faith unravelled, Constantine realised this fracture threatened to destabilise his vision of a cohesive empire. The Arian controversy loomed large, proposing that the Son was not co-eternal with the Father, a belief that sparked debates far beyond the divine. It was a question of identity and survival. Summoning bishops from across the realm to Nicaea was a testament to Constantine's unique understanding of faith as a formidable force that could either unify or divide the empire he painstakingly welded together. The summons was ambitious, an emperor's divine invitation extended under the guise of a diplomatic mandate. Nicaea, a nondescript town chosen more for its accessibility than grandeur, swelled to life as over 300 bishops, along with scholars and observers, converged from far-flung territories, their presence turning the city into a vibrant tapestry of cultures. Each bishop arrived armed not just with spiritual fervour, but with scrolls and parchments, their convictions flanked by political implications and regional biases. Vessels from corners of the empire docked at nearby coasts, releasing travellers who melded into the pulse of dialogue that charged the air. Among them walked Athenaeus and others who would etch their names into the annals of history through the vigour of their debates. Inside Nicaea's austere halls, arguments clashed fiercely, their echoes reverberating against the age-old stones. The bishops, cloaked in religious authority and staking claims to divine truths, found themselves embroiled in discussions that veered from matters celestial to terrestrial power plays. Constantinople's vision was challenged by the fervent arguments between the Arians and their orthodox counterparts. Though not directly embroiled in theological minutiae himself, Constantine recognised that the outcome of this moral battle was crucial for the empire's stability. Every whispered conversation, every vehement dispute bore the weight of his political aspirations, the clashing ideologies threatening to cleave his realm. Crafting a unified doctrine was no small feat. After weeks of intense discussions amidst relentless drafts and redrafts, the bishops emerged with the Nicene Creed, a manifesto of faith that asserted the consubstantiality of the Son with the Father. The Creed was more than a declaration. It was Constantine's triumph, a document as much political as it was spiritual. With it, the emperor sought to legislate divine order into imperial unity, compelling each bishop to pledge allegiance like troops under a common standard. The symbolic act was a promise of lasting stability. Yet Constantine's well-laid plans for harmony quickly revealed their fragility. While Arius and his followers found themselves exiled for heresy, these theological outcasts carried with them seeds of continued discord. The council had established parameters of belief, but it cast long shadows of controversy. The emperor's embrace of Christianity had reshaped Roman society, but it bred resistance in pockets of imperial soil less fertile for unified creed. Despite the emperor's desire for singularity in faith, the persistent echoes of dissent reverberated through the halls of power well beyond his reign. Constantine's role in church affairs had pioneered a precedent, blending emperor and ecclesiastical arbiter into a singular authority. No Roman ruler before had so boldly intertwined empire with religion, transforming his leadership into an amalgam of personal faith and imperial strategy. His journey from pagan roots to Christian patronage infused a charismatic air into his rule. This new integration redefined the empire's spiritual landscape, setting rulers as both sovereigns of land and guardians of faith. Constantine's measures ensured that Christianity became an indelible backbone of public policy, reshaping the ideological landscape of an empire and setting a template for future rulers. His actions spun a consonance between church and state that would persist long after the dust settled over Rome's ancient stones, embedding a symbiotic relationship that bequeathed mutual strength and burdens. Reflecting on the council's impact reveals Constantine's risky gamble, one that yielded lasting dividends. By championing Christianity as a linchpin of political cohesion, he fortified an empire weathering doctrinal unrest and external threats. Though the Nicene Creed laid groundwork for future theological quibbles and schisms, its creation marked a turning point where religion and state coalesced into a unified polity. In the shadow of Nicaea's enduring legacy, Constantine emerged not merely as a statesman, but a visionary whose leap into ecclesiastical interventions nurtured Christianity into enduring prominence. His deft handling of temporal power intertwined with spiritual legitimacy offered a legacy of faith woven through empire, a testament to an alliance that would ripple throughout the ages. Constantine's decision to create a new Rome was more than a strategic gambit. It was a masterstroke aimed at forging a legacy that would outshine the past and illuminate a new path for the Roman Empire. Faced with the corruption and unrest suffocating Rome, Constantine envisioned a vibrant city that would serve as both a political and spiritual centre. His choice of Byzantium, poised on the Bosporus Strait, was no accident. Here, the confluence of Europe and Asia created a unique bridge that promised trade and cultural exchange, an ideal sphere for Constantine to institute a revitalised empire, free from the shadows of paganism and entrenched aristocratic power. Byzantium already had its own robust history, founded around 657 BCE by settlers from Megara. The city flourished as a Greek colony and thrived as a vital point controlling the maritime passage between the Aegean and Black Seas. Byzantium was not just a geographical asset, but a cultural melange that, despite the overshadowing dominance of Rome, prospered as a trade hub, a pivotal crossroads for the world. By the time Constantine recognized its potential, Byzantium had a well-established infrastructure ripe for transformation, a jewel on the verge of being polished into the core of his empire. In laying plans for Constantinople, Constantine drew inspiration from the grandiose designs of Rome, yet firmly interwove them with Christian principles. His architects crafted a city that combined triumphant Roman architecture with Christian symbolism, marrying the old world's grandeur with the emerging Christian ethos. Opulent forums, monumental gates, and Christian edifices such as the Church of the Holy Apostles painted Constantine's vision across the landscape. These were not mere decorations. They served as tangible symbols of unity within a realm seeking identity amidst shifting ideologies. Religious connotations permeated the city, with Constantinople's very layout reflecting a fusion of secular rule and divine purpose. Massive churches, including the iconic Hagia Sophia, became centres of spiritual life, projecting both faith and imperial ambition. The seamless integration of these spheres illustrated Constantine's aim, solidifying Christianity's place at Rome's heart and transforming the very fabric of daily life through sacred festivals and ecclesiastical influence. Economically, Constantinople burgeoned as a nexus where East met West. The vibrant markets overflowed with goods from distant realms, spices, silks, and other treasures of the world exchanged amidst a chorus of languages and cultures. This bustling mercantile environment funneled wealth into the city's heart, allowing Constantine not only to fortify the urban landscape, but also to fund the spread of Christian doctrine through opulent artistic and architectural projects, seeding schools and churches throughout the empire. Yet, reshaping the empire was not without its detractors. Resistance from Rome's traditionalist quarters was inevitable. To many, The shifting of Rome's quintessence to a new city seemed a disquieting departure from millennia-old traditions. Constantine faced a web of diplomatic and political challenges as he managed allegiances while suppressing fissures threatening his vision. His adept manoeuvring and strategic concessions endured, preserving an empire in transformation without succumbing to the fractures of discontent. Constantinople's rapid development fostered a rich cultural renaissance. The city's melting pot of Greek, Roman, Christian, and local traditions brewed a vibrant cultural milieu that attracted scholars, artists, and theologians. Intellectual endeavours thrived alongside religious devotion, with frescoes and mosaics adorning spaces with Christian imagery, blending art with imperial propaganda. Here, the preservation and reinterpretation of classical knowledge took root, birthing a new chapter, the precursor to Byzantine culture that would continue to flourish long after Constantinople's founding. Innovations abounded beyond aesthetics, marking germinal developments in urban planning. Constantinople featured advanced sanitation systems, defensive fortifications, and transport channels that underscored Roman practicality merged with Byzantine flair. Walls that withstood centuries of siege, sophisticated aqueducts ensuring clean water, and a city plan that managed to stave off common urban blights. These elements showcased a forethought that transformed Constantinople into an enduring bastion. Ultimately, Constantinople stood as a symbol of epochal transition, an emblematic shift from pagan antiquity to Christian medievalism, bridging cultural divides with an edifice of faith and authority. As Constantine articulated his monumental dream, he anchored not only his temporal power, but also a new ideological pathway that would navigate the empire into a future familiar yet undiscovered. Even after Constantine's reign concluded, Constantinople's legacy cast its indelible shadow across the annals of history. From the Byzantine Empire's height to its twilight under Ottoman ascendancy, the city remained a lodestar of cultural and theological discourse. As the city reinvented itself under successive empires and rulers, the enduring wisdom of Constantine's foundation never waned. In the twilight of its ancient power, Constantinople, reborn as Istanbul, continued to echo the ingenuity and resolve of its founder, a perpetual testament to a time when one man's vision dared to reshape the world. Constantine, a figure caught between two ages, navigated the shifting sands of Roman and Christian identities with a profound understanding of the delicate balance required for harmony. He was a man steeped in Roman tradition, yet progressively committed to Christianity, a faith he courageously legitimized within his empire. Despite granting patronage and protection to Christians, Constantine remained tied to the ceremonies and customs of Rome's polytheistic past, engaging in rites meant to purify and dignify the state. This dual allegiance was no mere political maneuver. It mirrored an epoch on the cusp of transformation, an empire grappling with its storied polytheistic past while tentatively embracing monotheism. During an era when gods and goddesses were woven into the very fabric of daily life, Constantine's reluctance to seek baptism before his death is often interpreted as strategic patience. He recognized Christianity as a refuge and a lever to unify his dominion, but also knew the empire wasn't yet ready to relinquish its long-standing deities. His eventual baptism, delayed until his deathbed, is a testament to his insight into the evolving religious landscape. This calculated postponement suggests a nuanced grasp of governance. Constantine, an emperor of both the Old Guard and an avant-garde Christian world, knew when to assert and when to hold his religious stance. Baptism, a rite symbolizing spiritual transformation, was for Constantine anything but a simple ritual. His deathbed conversion represented an ultimate allegiance to the faith he had carefully nurtured and protected. By delaying the public completion of his baptism, Constantine maintained his role as a sovereign of unity, navigating between divided religious factions within his realm. Opting to defer this sacrament served as a testament to his understanding of the empire's religious dynamics, a delicate balance Constantine maintained deftly, establishing him as a leader whose strategies were rooted as much in realpolitik as in genuine faith. Constantine's reign was marked by religious reforms, but a pragmatic approach underscored his decisions. While erecting basilicas to honour the new faith, he continued to celebrate long-standing Roman festivals, revealing a ruler keen on inclusive governance. His blend of Christian and pagan elements was not an equivocation of personal belief, but a strategic move to ensure his empire, still strongly attached to its religious roots, remained united. By engaging with both worlds, Constantine brought a measured shift into the religious landscape, avoiding abrupt breaks that might fracture the empire's social fabric. Religion and statecraft were, in Constantine's hands, interwoven with remarkable precision. He initiated significant doctrinal shifts, most notably through the Council of Nicaea, not merely to arbitrate theological debates beyond his individual concern, but to instill a codified Christian identity, bolstered by imperial sanction. This, in turn, supported a coherent religious narrative that lent stability to his rule. His involvement planted Christianity firmly within the empire's beating heart, transforming it from a once persecuted sect into a cornerstone of Roman identity and governance. Ever mindful of the empire's pagan legacy, Constantine deftly aligned traditional symbols with his nascent Christian narrative, allowing cultural continuity to thread through religious change. It was a savvy blend, respecting calamitous potential divides by weaving familiarity with transformation. The interplay of iconography and ritual within newly formed Christian spaces prevented alienation, threading ancient beliefs into the burgeoning Christian ethos. This delicate fusion of past and future allowed Rome to progress without denying its roots, preserving peace and fostering unity. The image of Constantine's deathbed baptism is emblematic, capturing an emperor poised between worlds, ready to at last embrace the faith he had supported with such fervour throughout his life. This culmination of personal belief and imperial strategy underscored a lifetime's delicate balancing act between power and faith, creating a narrative where his ultimate commitment to Christian ideals was as cleansing and redemptive as it was politically astute. His baptism was an affirmation of the spiritual cause he championed, a final profound testament completing his life's work by merging personal conviction with the transformative power of the faith he aligned with his legacy. Constantine's decision to delay baptism until his death carries significant theological weight, echoing the early Christian ideal of purification. By reserving his baptism for life's end, Constantine mirrored the period's understanding of celestial absolution, a poignant act securing heavenly entry free from later sins. For the emperor, this decision painted him as both a Christian exemplar and an imperial figurehead, deeply invested in salvation and authority. In bridging generations, Constantine's insight into the religious intricacies of his time cemented his role as a ruler of unparalleled acumen. His careful blend of respect for tradition with a bold envisioning of the future ensured religious evolution didn't fracture, but united the empire. His ability to orchestrate the convergence of pagan and Christian elements helped ensure a harmonious transition within his dominion and set a precedent for generations. Constantine's legacy looms large, a testament to embracing change while respecting continuity. A visionary who understood that, done wisely, religious evolution was a steady blending of old and new rather than an abrupt rupture. The story of Constantine the Great is one woven deep into the very fabric of history, leaving an indelible mark that bridged the grandeur of Rome with the burgeoning spread of Christianity. His reign signalled the decline of Rome's pagan roots, as Christianity rose from a persecuted sect to a force within imperial politics. As the first Christian emperor, Constantine was a torchbearer who illuminated a path for future generations, blending imperial rule with religious reform in remarkable ways. His legacy is a complex tapestry of triumph and transformation, full of contradictions. Born amidst the pagan rites of Roman gods, Constantine's conversion ushered in a monumental cultural shift, altering political and societal structures beyond anyone's expectations. This transformation was gradual, reflecting a nuanced negotiation between old customs and new beliefs. Constantine masterfully bridged these worlds, steering the empire where crosses and crowns intertwined, not as adversaries, but as symbols shaping an eternal legacy. Under Constantine, the landscape of religious persecution was revolutionized. Prior to his rule, Christians faced violent oppression, seen as threats to the religious status quo of Rome. However, Constantine's conversion ushered a new era of tolerance, solidified by the Edict of Milan in 313 CE. Christianity now flourished, not only as a spiritual movement, but a political force, entwined with state power. Constantine wasn't merely a passive support. He immersed himself in church affairs, influencing doctrine and theological debates, reshaping what it meant to be Roman. With temples giving way to churches and the cross beginning to symbolize authority, Constantine set a precedent that would transform Christianity from a persecuted faith into the empire's spiritual backbone. Yet his legacy was not about eradicating paganism, but integrating Christianity into imperial identity, paving the way for a unified Christendom to rise and resonate through Europe for centuries. Politically, Constantine's reign marked the deliberate fusion of authority and faith. By aligning with Christianity, he acquired a vast support network. Churches and bishops became instruments of imperial policy, helping govern and disseminate Constantine's edicts. The relationship between throne and altar was evolutionary, crafting a new governance model where divine rule was no longer just rhetoric. Stability was achieved through common faith, and though he laid the foundation for Byzantine-style governance, his expectation of religious conformity to political allegiance would leave a lasting imprint on future European history. The shift from paganism was not abrupt. Pagan customs were seamlessly integrated into Christian traditions, allowing for societal transition without disorder. Temples were repurposed, and festivals like Saturnalia became Christmas, embedding Christian ideology into every Roman citizen's life. Constantine's legacy, therefore, was one of transformation rather than destruction, preserving cultural continuity while fostering religious evolution. Nowhere was Constantine's vision more visible than in Constantinople, the new imperial capital that emerged under his reign. Situated strategically, it was a cultural and political centre that rivaled Rome's waning authority. Constantine imagined a city of Christian art and architecture, severed from Rome's pagan past. Dedicated with grandeur matching old Rome, Constantinople thrived for over a millennium, long after Rome fell. Constantinople's architecture and urban design echoed Roman sophistication and Christian sanctity. From the Hippodrome to Hagia Sophia, the city established an enduring legacy in urban development, blending spiritual and everyday life seamlessly. Through Constantinople, imperial power was symbolically and physically reimagined under a Christian aegis, influencing city building beyond the Byzantine Empire. Administratively, Constantine enacted pivotal reforms to streamline governance. These reforms fixed the bureaucratic inefficiencies that plagued the Roman system, enforcing a hierarchy that demanded accountability from local rulers to imperial authority. Militarily, he crafted responsive units for swift threat responses, while economically, he introduced the solidus, stabilizing the currency and fortifying the Roman economy. These transformations underscored Constantine's lasting impact on governance, ensuring long-term imperial prosperity. However, Constantine's Christian identity was as complicated as it was meaningful. Despite his support for Christianity, debates linger over his personal adherence to the faith. His vision of the cross before the Battle of Milvian Bridge, credited for divine intervention, didn't lead to immediate baptism. Instead, he waited until his deathbed, a practice common for cleansing at life's end, but one that reflected his continued ties to Rome's ancient beliefs. Constantine's legacy stretched beyond his reign, influencing successive generations. His immediate lineage, including sons Constantine II, Constantius II, and Constans, inherited an empire transformed by his vision. Through them, Christian ideology became an indelible part of Roman statecraft. His policies and religious blueprint transitioned to shaping European ideals, heavily influencing the Byzantine Empire, the Christianization of Germanic tribes, and the Holy Roman Empire. Historians and scholars view Constantine variously as hero, heretic, or visionary. To some, he is the images of a Christian emperor whose divinely inspired leadership transformed history. Critics, however, see him as a political strategist who harnessed Christianity for empire unity. These interpretations highlight Constantine's multifaceted legacy, where faith, politics, and ambition intersected with epoch-defining consequences. Today, the legacy of Constantine endures profoundly. By establishing Christianity's dominance, he laid down a foundation that influenced Western civilization's ethos, reshaping religious practices, governance, and cultural norms. Beyond religion, the very fabric of modern governance owes itself to his vision of intertwining secular and divine rule. Constantine's lifetime of transformation serves as a bridge to today, his echo resounding in the imperial blueprint that continues to influence our world. If you enjoyed uncovering the vibrant tapestry of Constantine's life and legacy, consider liking and subscribing for more tales from history's hidden depths.